everyone, Andrew from WiZDOM here with the fourth video in helping get your kids into property. Now this video is probably going to be the most simple with regard to structure and the various ways you can go about helping supporting your kids. I want to deal with where you just gift them money. Okay, so structurally it's relatively straightforward, but again, I feel like there are some advantages and disadvantages with regard to using this structure to help your kids, and I think that's worth talking about and worth covering. So firstly, structurally, what are we talking about? Well, it's a relatively straightforward example. From this perspective, we've got our parents who have just got a pot of money and they're willing to provide some of that money to their kids to help them get into property. And then on the other side, we've got kids that are getting into a particular property. And as you can imagine, this type of structure is, relatively common, quite common. All around Australia every day, there's plenty of parents who are gifting an amount of money to kids, either all of what they need from a deposit perspective or some of what they need to help them and get started and get into their first property. So from a structure perspective, it's relatively straightforward, but it is important to understand that as this gift comes across, there are many lenders who, if it's known that that money in part was a gift or that deposit that was provided to the kids, that's a gift, they will actually want some level of documentation behind it. So it could be a statutory declaration, it could just be a letter, but quite often they'll be asking for something from you as parents to confirm that it was a gift and it is a gift and it's irrecoverable. So from there, it's relatively straightforward in the sense of, generally speaking, your kids with regard to their purchase price are going to be limited to a combination of their servicing ability, their repay to the debt, and of course, their total deposit and how that plays out as well. And it's fair to say that when it comes to the kids, they're going to be obviously the ones that are going into this property on title. And as I've showed before, they are going to be the ones that will be taking out the loan, and they will be the ones that will be providing the mortgage for that loan as well. As parents, you're not involved in this structure at all. The reality is once that gift happens, then you're kind of done. So what are the advantages and the disadvantages when it comes to this particular strategy? Well, obviously, first, one of the key advantages here is simplicity. The reality is, as parents, you've gifted that money, you've provided whatever documentation applies to that. You're not involved in the lending process at all. That's all on your kids. You don't need to get involved in that, and it's relatively simplistic. Equally, because of this simple structure, you're not involved in the lending, you're not providing any further guarantees as well. And of course, you have, I can't say it's invested, right? Because the reality is the money probably isn't coming back, but you are limited with regard to your exposure to the amount of money that you've provided. But I think therein lies a conversation that needs to happen as well. And I think it's fairly honest to be talking about the fact that obviously, when it comes to your kids, we're not talking about all of your kids. Often we are talking about one of your children, and it may just be them solo, or it may be them with a partner. And I think it's reasonable to consider the asset protection play in here as well. Now, quite often, as parents, now I'm not one, but I certainly have a huge amount of clients that I talk to every day, and that are parents and have been through this kind of situation. Often, yes, you love your kids, you want to see them do well, but they may not have made a great choice when it comes to partner, at least from your perspective or in your opinion. And one of the considerations about gifting this money, particularly where you are providing paperwork as well, is that it is no longer your money. Obviously, it is now your child's money. And as a result of that, if they're in a long-term relationship and are considered to be de facto, of course, married or anything else, it also means that you are effectively contributing that towards their marital assets. And as a result of that, if anything would happen with the relationship, well, of course, you have a daughter-in-law or a son-in-law who is going to end up with a portion of your money. Now, of course, I don't mean to be negative or doomsday about this, but I do think it's a good consideration with regard to providing that gift across to your children. I think that a lot of people don't really think about that, and it only comes to fruition later, and of course, they regret that. Now, from an asset protection perspective, when it comes to supporting your kids into property, again, I think there are other ways that you can go about that, which in part is going to protect your money. Now, I appreciate if you're gifting it, it's no longer your money. However, I think there are arrangements that we can put in place with regard to this, where effectively you can protect that money. You could have it as a loan for argument's sake, which I'll talk about in a future video. And if something did go wrong with the relationship, well, there is paperwork that supports that that money is owed back to you, which of course you can claim back. And then when your child has gone beyond that relationship and is potentially looking to re-establish themselves in the property market, or indeed is looking to stay in the property market as part of a separation, well, then you are in a great financial position to be able to support that again. So when it comes to gifts, the reality is I do think that's the biggest single thing and why I wanted to talk about it in a video. Structurally, it's not complicated and it's certainly a great way to help your children get into property. However, I do want you to think about some of the implications of that, some of the pros and cons before you just sort of make that decision to hand that money across. So I hope that that's been helpful. Again, it's another way that you can help get your kids into property. I look forward to bringing you more videos in the near future. Until then, happy investing and bye.